Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Doctors of Running podcast, where we, a group of doctors of physical therapy, discuss the art and science of running and the stuff that we put on our feet. If you are watching on YouTube, you're lucky enough to see the special guest in the background in Matt's screen. If you can figure out who that is, you can drop it below and let us know. But we have a fun roundtable today. We have Dr. Matthew Klein, Dr. David Salas, and I'm Nathan Brown. I'll be hosting tonight, and we are doing our second edition of the buy or sell episode. So we have a number of topics that we've heard conversation about, both in the literature, both from the running community and within our team and from our followers. And we're going to be posing those topics, and we're going to be either buying or selling whatever the topic is. So for our subjective for the day, what we want you to do is write topics that you want us to consider for our future buy or sell episodes. What topics have you been reading about? Have you been learning about? Have you been hearing about that you want to hear our take on whether we buy or sell that concept or whatever it happens to be? But we have a pretty tired crew here today. I would say I'm the most energetic of the three, which is surprising.
It's usually the opposite, yeah.
It's usually the opposite. I'm usually just, I don't know. These people have super high capacities, which is pretty amazing. But Matt, how are you hanging in there with kind of all the things you're juggling? What's it been like for you?
It's really hard to juggle all this stuff and dad life. I love my daughter. She just, my wife is working way harder than me because I'm semi-useless right now because she's 5 weeks old. And I changed a lot of diapers, though, but can't really breastfeed. So, yeah, trying to maintain all that at the same time is not easy. So a little fatigued, but I'm still upright, so can't complain. I got my fifth subject with Achilles tendon issues. I only need 10 more. So if you're in Southern California, or if, hey, you want to fly down here, if you have Achilles tendon issues and are a runner, master's runner over 50 and have no other problems other than your Achilles bothering you, I need 10 more subjects. So just going to throw that out there.
I love it. And David, how about you? How are you hanging in there? I know it's heavy volume weeks for you right now and other life stuff. So how are you doing?
Doing good. I am pretty tired. It's been interesting. So after the wedding and the honeymoon, I didn't run for like a week and a half to 2-ish weeks. And then because I kind of needed to, hopped right back into the training if I'm going to have any chance at running fast, for what I want to do at CIM. And so I've been running a lot, and even just yesterday, I was telling you guys a little bit before the air, did 4 by 10 minutes at a pretty hot pace and off not much rest. And it was a 14-mile day, and then today I did 20, and I'm feeling it a little bit, I only have 4 miles tomorrow. I mean, it's basically just get a shakeout in. So I'm just going to take tomorrow to be my big recovery day.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm a little bit of a zombie. And then some friends also recently had a baby as well. So I was at a celebration for their new daughter, Naomi. So I was at that right before coming to this. So today has been kind of one to the next,
Yep. That's exhausting.
But yeah.
Cool.
I'm cool.
Nathan, what about you?
I'm doing well overall. I got a couple big things off my plate last week at the beginning of last week, submitted some stuff that I had to write. And it's amazing what taking a whole realm of your life and stamping it complete and taking out can do for your brain. So I had an awesome last week in terms of productivity for writing for my own schooling and, with the teaching of the beginning of the semester. It was a good time to get a couple things kind of done and off my plate. So doing well. And Henry, who is our oldest, who just started kindergarten, we asked him, I asked everyone at the table, if you could go anywhere in the world right now, where would you go? And Henry's answer was to school, which is pretty cool. The fact that he's loving school that much, that's another just as a parent, a younger parent with new kids in school, you never know how they're going to handle it all, and he's loving it. So that's a huge gift. And then Ray has been thriving with kind of the extra one-on-one time. So I would say our family's doing pretty well, which when things are functioning well at home, it fuels a lot of other stuff too. So I'm doing good, and having fun right now, I would say, which isn't always the case. Well, that's not a fair statement. I usually do have fun, but sometimes I feel more exhausted while having fun. I don't feel exhausted today. So I'm enjoying that and thankful for it. So, but let's get into our buy or sell. And the first one is around the topic of what we've been seeing happen over the last, 3 to 5 years. We've been seeing a lot of conversation about super shoes. We've also been seeing a lot of PRs, not PRs, sorry, a lot of world records going down. And so the buy or sell is that shoes are a major contributor to what we're seeing with all of these world records being broken in professional running. So again, do you buy or sell the fact that the super shoes or the shoe technology are major contributors to all of these world records going down? And maybe it would be helpful too to talk about what some of these world records are that have gone down, but what do you guys think about that? How big a deal are the shoes?
Are we talking track or road, or does it matter?
Yes, we're talking it all, and you can delineate, but
Can I cheat and say both?
let's see. Flesh it out
disclaimer?
more. Yeah, we can't do too many disclaimers. You get like one disclaimer per buy or sell episode, but you can use it here if you want.
All right, I'll use it here. I'm going to sell it overall. And I think I'm still a firm believer that it's the athlete first. And when we take a look at these world records, some of these are just so astronomically hard to break. And regardless of what shoe you have on your feet, it's going to take someone very special to break it. And when we look at the distances, pretty much everything north of the 3K has been broken. But when you take a look at those lists, when I look at the 5K, Joshua Cheptegei is the only man to run faster than Kenenisa Bekele. Joshua Cheptegei is the only one to run faster than him at the 5K and the 10K, right? You look at the half marathon records, like Jeffrey Kamworor was running savage 58s before these guys were running 57s. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like these records aren't being broken by much. And when I really think about it and I look at the marathon and it's like, okay, who has run a world record level time, since the super shoes came to the market? There's only been 3 people, right? Like, for how much hype these shoes get, like Wilson Kipsang ran 203 low, and then it was Kimetto ran 202. Since then, there's only been like 3 guys that have gone that fast or faster. You know what I mean? With Eliud Kipchoge, Kenenisa Bekele, who are 2 of the greatest to ever do it in the first place, right? Across any distances. And Bekele being a former 2-time world record holder in other events, right? And the other gentleman, I feel really bad I'm forgetting his name. He's run 201 twice. But
At Berlin, right?
It was Valencia, and it might have been Berlin. I don't know what the second one.
No, it was Valencia. That's the one I was thinking.
The first one was Valencia, and he did it again somewhere else. But when I think about it from that standpoint, it's like, oh, is it the shoes that are breaking these world records? It's like, no, the athletes are still breaking the world records. If there was 10 people breaking it, I'd feel different. Mm-hmm. But it's still taking a very, very special person to go and break it. And so at the 5K, 1 person. At the 10K, 1 person. At the half marathon, I think it's closer to 3 or 4, maybe 5. The half marathon probably has the most. The marathon, 3, right? So those numbers aren't great in that, as far as saying it's the shoes, because if it was truly the shoes, then you would just have all these guys that are 205 guys that are now going to go run 201 or 202, and it's going to be like, oh, look, it was the shoes. They just knocked 3 minutes off their marathon. They're all amazing, right? With that said, I think these shoes also do a great job of not beating people up as much, and people can train more. And I think for the larger masses of the depths of the sport, that has gotten a lot better. And that probably could have some attribution to shoes because of how high the injury rates are in running, period. Across any distances, across any level of performance, people get hurt. And if people are able to stay healthy longer, they're able to compete more. And if they're able to compete more, then the masses gets faster. So indirectly, from a larger scale operation, these shoes might have some play there. But as far as tackling the world records go, Hisham El Garouj still has that world record in the 1500 and the 5K, not 5K, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, 1500 in the mile without a dragonfly, right? And you look at the 800, that was in the Adidas SP. What was that in? It was like a special shoe for Rudisha at the time. No one's come close to it, and we've had plenty of innovations in that realm as well. And I don't know. It's a sell for me at the world record level, truly, and the 3K as well. Like Koeman ran 720. Like there are some savages out there that have put these solid placements down in their mark in history, and it's going to take someone who's just as special to go and break it, regardless of what's on their foot. So I'm still on the side of the athlete when it comes to breaking records.
Matt, do you have any thoughts to add on to that?
So I'm going to do a total buy, and I'm going to say it makes sense that the 3K and under hasn't really been touched, because I don't think these shoes make you faster. I think it's about economy, which means it's efficiency. So I think they help you extend what you can do longer. And so we've seen every road record from 5K up to the 100-mile broken in the last several years. I forget the guy's name who he had a little bit of rough day today. The 100-miler, the 100K record holder who does all his training in alpha flies and vapor flies. Like that guy is putting on monster efforts and times, and I don't think he'd be able to recover from that if he was running in more traditional shoes. So the recovery is definitely a thing, but the ability to extend out an effort is incredible. Like you're seeing lots of people go under 204 for the marathon, which used to be just this insane thing. Now, when you get to that level of performance, I think the margins of improvement are so small that it really doesn't surprise me that only a couple of people can do that. Because David's totally right. You got to have that special sauce. And sorry, a super shoe isn't going to run it for you. You still got to have this sauce. But going back to what David said on the masses, if you look at the data that Strava published not too long ago, there's more studies coming out looking at the average time, and people are getting faster, especially when they start adding these shoes in. So I personally, I'm not as worried. Like, yes, the world records have come down. I think shoes, this technology does play a part. But it's going to play such a small part just because there's so many factors there. But I do think it is helping people. That said, to what degree it's helping them and what might be the consequences later, that's a different story. So I buy. Yeah. I'm a total buy on this.
That's what my nuance is where I think for the masses, I think it's a buy. But when I look at the world records, do you think Joshua Cheptegei could run 12:35 without dragonflies? That's an honest question.
Probably, I don't know. So probably not. What would
right? Like we're talking
right? What would Bekele? But I think when it comes to track and stuff like that,
but it's all speculation.
I think he might have, but I think those kind of relatively shorter distances, I think your all-out speed is going to play a lot bigger part in how fast you're running. And what's Bekele's mile PR? Nathan's got a comment. I want to hear Nathan.
Bekele was never known to be a miler.
He still ran pretty fast.
Oh, he ran very fast. He ran 401, 402, 1600s for freaking 5K.
Yeah, so it's there, but I think it's at a certain distance. When you get those longer distances, I think it's definitely made an effect. For the shorter distances, I don't think I'm amazed. I think I don't even know how much the shoes really help Joshua Cheptegei, or if it's just him at that distance.
Well, that's what
I think
saying.
You have to get longer. I think you have to get longer. So there is an asterisk, but I think overall, I'm still a buy on this.
What about 10K?
Most people aren't running a mile.
What about 10K? Where does this line get drawn?
Track 10K or road 10K?
You track or road?
Track 10K. Road too. Why not? Let's go road. Because that was another example.
I'm going to say road. Because I think there's
that barely
the
got
women's
broken
10K.
as well. That wasn't shattered. That was and that was running the Takumi Sen, I believe, right? Wasn't it? Oh, no, Cheptegei broke it again, I think on the Road 10, I believe.
I'm still
Road 5.
Here's my thing.
I know you got Road 5.
The statement is a major contributor, and I think that word major for me makes me sell it. We know that everything has a place in the pie. It all contributes to improved running performance, but I think major, I don't think we have enough evidence to show that that's what they broke it by less than a second. It's probably because of the shoe. The shoe is what got him there. Versus, have we learned a lot about nutrition, training habits,
training
the value
groups.
of sleep, recovery? we've learned so much, and the landscape of how people train has changed a lot. I'm hard pressed to give shoes enough credit when we know that at your best, like people are getting on average like 2.5 to 4% running economy improvement over the course of a marathon. Like that's at best. And like you'd say, you have to match that to all these people. I don't know. I'm a sell right now. I'm not claiming that they don't contribute to helping in all the ways that y'all talked about with recovery.
I think a bigger
and running
thing,
economy. It helps, but I think that there's other factors that play a bigger role. I think it plays a small it's a small minor contributor, not a major.
I think the biggest thing is these training groups too. People are training together. They're working hard. Everyone's making each other better. I think one great example of a recent training group that came out is the On Athletics Club, right? Like you look at all those guys and gals, when they joined that team, they weren't running 327, 328, or yard and a goose, Jesus, 343 in the mile, right? Like he was a collegiate guy that came out of Notre Dame. What was his PR at that time? 334? Like this dude has gotten so much better. Is it the shoe or is it his training group, right? Like they all got better. And I think so much of it is that they're training together. They're working hard. They're going to these races. I mean, it's hard for me to buy that Ollie Hoare just put on a pair of Ons and is going to run 4 seconds faster in a 1500 because he's wearing Ons. Like,
I'm going to point out that I don't think that the track super shoes are really making that much of a difference.
So then why are they all running so much better? You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's the same thing when we look at the long distances. You look at these like training groups, like the NN running group, and all those guys are savages, and they're all training together, and they all live and do everything together. And I mean, it's also just a giant cultural shift too. Like, it's just not like that in the U.S. to the degree it is over there. But like, if you live and breathe running and you train and you do everything with this body of like-minded people that are all trying to go for the same thing, it makes everyone better. And I think that's how you knock on the shoulders of giants, right? Like it used to be one or two people up there, and now that depth has just gotten so much deeper. Is that the shoe, or is that these training groups, nutrition, science, coaching, all these other things that go into it? And like, I think the shoe's largest impact probably is it. I mean, I hate to say because we don't have solid data on it, but is potentially injury risk. Like if they're able to just unload their legs a little bit, and I don't know if they're able to increase their work volume without getting injured, and some of that's also just coaching and variability as well. But like,
well, I think the challenge is
to just get out there more, they will do better.
The initial data has showed that injury rates are not actually changing, even with the super shoes. Yes, people can do more workout. There's more volume it can do, but the injury rates haven't changed. Just the injury types are continuing to shift.
But if their volume can increase and that workload can increase and they can get themselves to the line, that
and we're also asking about world records.
Right.
So who's getting hurt is also the like global mass, like everybody maybe injury risk is not changing, but are those people having changes in their injuries? I don't know any of that, but I think it's interesting. We should move on to our next question. We should move on to the next question. And this is a big pivot from this type of conversation. The next one is more kind of on the ground, day-to-day running. The question is buy or sell, or not question, but the statement's buy or sell foam rolling and stretching after runs.
As far as just doing it or for a purpose?
Yes.
I think in general.
I'll let you take it.
I'm going to go first on this one.
Yeah, go.
So I'm going to say for the general population, it's a sell. I think those two things address very specific impairments. If you have limited muscle flexibility, after your run is a great time to work on that because the tissue is warm. You're not going to be doing a hard effort afterwards. It's a great time to do that. But if you don't have flexibility deficits, it's not something that's going to be on the top of my priority list for recovery or even function. There are different people. If you have flexibility deficits, but for the general population, no. And the same thing for foam rolling. The evidence has found that foam rolling really doesn't do much except can change tissue tone, right? So when you roll on something, you put pressure there, you're stimulating a lot of the tissues in your muscles and other tissues that basically is stimulating your nervous system. And depending on how hard you push, it's often a little inhibitory. So if you have a muscle that has a lot of tone and it's kind of guarded and stiff, yeah, pushing on it with a foam roller might help reduce that tone. Is that something the majority of the population has a problem with? No, I think it's, again, specific to a couple people going, yeah, I tend to have a little higher tone here. A foam roller might help. But I'm going to also ask you, is the tone the problem, or is it overly toned because it's compensating, you're moving a certain way? So I'm a big sell on these unless you can really convince me that you as an individual have a specific impairment or impairments that need to be worked on. So I think there's a lot bigger priorities to work on than those two. And they're so general, no. So sell.
I'll jump in next, and I'll buy it for a specific reason. So it's pretty much it's funny how like my buy is Matt's sell in some ways, where I see both of those as tools to reach specific goals. So if you are someone like Matt said with specific movement impairments or like limited flexibility in your calf musculature, or hip flexors, or whatever it is, and that would have to be determined by probably somebody testing these things, right? And that those limitations in mobility are showing up in your running mechanics, because we don't need as much flexibility as we think we do, especially in something like the hamstrings. We don't go through that much range of motion. But the idea of if you are remarkably limited in muscle flexibility, maybe you're post-operative and you're coming back from something, or you've been off and immobilized for a long period of time, maybe stress reaction, after a workout and after a run, stretching, it's a great time to do it. I also think that there's some utility for foam rolling from a symptom management standpoint. So if you're someone who's having some soreness before or after runs, foam rolling, I think, is an easy, short, and yeah, it's efficient and it's easy to use to decrease some of that soreness acutely, at least in the short term, which isn't a bad thing. So I buy it for that quick use, either before or after your run. It is shown to help decrease DOMS a little bit. Not as good as like an active recovery. So is the juice worth the squeeze? And I think that's what Matt is saying, is like, is your time best spent doing this or something else? And for a lot of the benefits that foam rolling gives you, there's other things that do it better. So, but I still buy it. Like if you're gonna not do a dynamic warm up, but you're gonna be motivated enough to foam roll, go for it. So I buy it, but not for what it's touted to do. I think that like all this soft tissue stuff before and after runs is touted to be these like silver bullets in recovery, and they're just not. So I don't buy them for what some of the claims are, but I do buy them for what they actually can do.
I would like to address one thing. There's a lot of claims that these things can break up scar tissue, and all the evidence says that it does not. To break up scar tissue, you need a knife and a scalpel, and you got to go in there under the skin and rip it apart. You are not taking out scar tissue, okay? That is absolutely BS, okay? Can you change tissue tone? Can you make impacts on some of the fascial tissue? Yes, but you're not ripping apart scar tissue. So there's zero evidence to show that you're actually doing that. So that I get pissed off when I'm like, really? Like you're gonna lie to people when you advertise that? Like, just be honest. What does it do? It makes you feel a little bit better for a short time. Right? You rub someone, well, hopefully you rub the right way, right? You rub someone the right way, it's going to feel better for a short time. Please don't take that out of context.
Okay, David, your turn.
All right.
I mean, that's what it is, right? Like, that's what foam rolling looks like it.
For the context of the question, if I had to choose one, I'd definitely be leaning sell. For the acute changes, decreasing tone, comfortability, just moving around and doing things, sure. But I think for the large scale answer, it's not doing that much. So I think it's a sell for me. However, if the question was before, I think I'd be a buy. And there's a couple reasons for that. Not that it should be done all of the time, but let's say you do have a little bit of tone and guarding, maybe you're a little sore, and that increases just temporarily in the acute phases. There is some research out there that shows that muscle length can increase temporarily, probably because of the tone, right? Like, the nervous system lets go a little bit. You can open up those legs a little bit more. That can be beneficial, and that if that takes a little bit of the noxious stimuli out, that's a good thing. Noxious meaning painful for the listeners. And then the other one is stretching, not necessarily statically. I mean, if you do a bunch of static stretching before you try and do an all-out effort, that doesn't exactly go your way. It's more inhibitory. However, dynamic stretching can be good. That's why you see people doing skips and drills and all kinds of things while they're warming up before they race. So I think it's really just a matter of timing and what you're using it for, ultimately. As long as there's a purpose and there's some reason why you're doing it, it's a buy. But I think in the grand scheme of things for afterwards, I think I'm going to have to sell.
And I totally cheated because I included before benefits in my buy answer.
Yeah,
so
that was your cheat. You don't get to cheat anymore.
That was my cheat for the day.
That was your cheat.
Yep.
You're done.
I will say on a slightly off topic note, there's actually very good evidence that if you are trying to improve your flexibility, if you combine foam rolling and stretching, it actually, the benefits of like trying to improve your flexibility actually maintain for a much longer period. So that together they seem to amplify the flexibility gains. By themselves. It's the stretching has a little bit longer effect than foam rolling, but just something to consider if that is actually something that is truly limiting you, something to consider.
Yeah. Great. We're going to move on to our next question. Isn't everyone excited? Matt and DJ are more awake now than they were at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, so now we get to argue, so this is great.
We got them fired up with foam rolling and world records going down, and it being because of super shoes. Yeah. Anyway, here's our third one. If you've been paying attention in kind of to the major brands, if that's something you're following, or if you're on like different media platforms where people are talking about shoes all the time, you may have seen some teasers and information about a new Adidas racing shoe that's coming out, and we just want to talk about that shoe a little bit and the concept behind it. It's a new long distance racing shoe, comes in at $500. And so Matt was able to sit in on kind of an informational meeting about it. What do we know about that shoe, Matt? And then do you just buy or sell the concept of a $500 marathon distance racing shoe? So Matt, first start kind of telling us a little bit about what we know about this shoe.
I'm not going to cheat, but let me clarify that I love Adidas stuff. I love the Adios Pro 3. I really want to try the new Adidas Terrex Super Shoe. I'm really interested, but yeah, I'll just say that beforehand. The specs, so they have totally redone this. It's a new version of Lightstrike Pro, which I don't think they have any business calling this stuff Lightstrike Pro anymore. Have redone and reimagined the entire shoe. Or something. Yeah, something like that. So the entire shoe, which has a 39 millimeter heel, a 33 millimeter forefoot stack height, so very traditional super shoe, weighs 138 grams. This is the lightest shoe to come out in I don't know how long. It's lighter than the Saucony Sinister, with having a tall stack height. With I can't remember if it has. Somebody remind me. Does it have rods?
It's lighter than the Adidas Avanti.
Yes, it's lighter than their track spikes.
It's lighter than their track spike.
4.8 ounces for those who are in ounces. So 138 grams.
5.8
So this is clearly a super shoe, but it is the lightest shoe to come out since like the minimal era. Like it's making the Mizuno Wave universe jealous, and it's like 4 Mizuno Wave universes stacked on top of each other. So I think that's awesome. That's incredible. Like I've been going, yes, these super shoes are great. They are just a little, I would love to see them a little lighter. That said, $500 price tag for this, I am a sell.
Also, we haven't not ran in this shoe. I think we also have to say that. We haven't actually ran in this shoe, but it's just the concept of this thing, I think, is
yeah. Like maybe when I put it on my feet, it'll blow my mind. But from my initial understanding, and somebody feel free to call me out if I'm wrong, that the durability on this is really supposed to last one race. Like that's how short. And I know it would last.
It was a little bit of preparatory time and a race. Essentially, I believe is my understanding.
So
give or take, probably 40 miles ish.
For $500, and if we're going with the fact that you guys are a sell on the super shoes contributing that much, and I believe it was worn in the Great North Run, and the person got second, if I remember correctly. Is that right? So So
who watches the Great North Run?
I'm a sell on this. I do.
I live in the United States.
There was that great duel between Kenenisa Bekele and Mo Farah a couple years ago, and Haile Gebrselassie.
I know, it's a solid race. I watch it. It's a good race.
So
I know it's a good race. I'm just being a hater.
I'm super interested in this shoe, and I definitely want to try it. And if it doesn't get sent to us, I'm probably going to be looking on eBay for it, but I'm not going to spend that much. I'm not making that mistake again.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm not doing this. I have a child now. I got to put that money in her college savings. But I think I'm excited for hoping that what Adidas learned from this trickles down into the rest of the stuff, and the industry goes, oh my gosh, there is another level we can push to, that we can make the same things much lighter. And that is, we know there are massive economy improvements from having lighter shoes. So if you combine that with what we're learning about foams and rockers, all that stuff, great. But $500 for this, at total sell for me, especially if it's going to last that long. That's honestly upsetting to me, but that's me. I wouldn't ever buy a Lamborghini. So,
very fair. I think for me too, conceptually, it's a sell as well. I think there's enough, just in and of itself, there's enough variability for someone like me to know what shoe is actually going to create a benefit that matters to me. We just got done talking about how much are these shoes contributing to world records, and
right.
I think that the same goes even more for the rest of us. And it's just like, I know, and again, this is, when it comes to price and value of things, like there's so much that comes in from your personal, like what situation are you coming from is going to play an impact on how you perceive these things. But I'd want to see the receipts as to like, what are the things that went in to create this shoe that costs, $200+ more than the best shoes on the market right now. Like, it's not like this is a $350 shoe, which is $50 more than, like the On Cloudboom Echo 3, or $100 more than the Vaporfly or something like that. This is double the cost of a Vaporfly. This is buying 2 Vaporflies. I think that's just a very high amount. So again, I'd want to see like, what was all the R&D costs that went into this? Like, show me the fact that this costs enough, because I don't like what this does in terms of setting a precedent for future companies to put out shoes that are just more and more out of reach. I don't like that. So I sell the concept on that as well.
Because we already saw that, where we had a bunch of companies after the Vaporfly came out, they were putting out footwear that had no business costing $250, but they were still putting that price tag. They didn't have P-backs foams. It was just a plate, which there are plenty of shoes that had plates before that. So the price thing, I'm with you on that for sure. The setting the precedent.
Yeah, David, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking something up really, really quick. Release price.
Stats and Intel.
No, this isn't the first time this has happened. So I'm going to be a buy on this because it's a concept and not the shoe itself. So here's what I'm thinking. So we're looking at a shoe that's never been made before, right? Like, this is literally, I've got 3 shoes next to me that are the lightest super shoes that I own. 1, Vaporflies, right? 6.8 ounces, give or take, 6.7, something like that. Take 2 full ounces off that. 30% of the weight has been taken off, with similar stack heights, new generation foam, all the bells and whistles. That is huge as far as the concept of footwear goes, because this was the shoe that revolutionized all of this. And at that time, they marked it up. And at that time, they also marked it up again. There was like a Vaporfly Elite that got released for Kipchoge in London, like 4 years ago? That was around $400 or $500 as well. This isn't meant for mass production, I don't think. This is a marketing thing where it's like, look what we can do. And this isn't meant to be like a shoe that's like, everybody go to your store and buy this. They're doing a limited release so that you can just see that it's there and build hype around the brand. And then they'll probably have something that's more consumer worthy. And those that are willing to go and shell that out for a shoe can go do that. But I don't think they're trying to market to the mass media in a sense of like, buy this shoe. I think it's more to just build excitement about Adidas. But when I think about it, right, it's lighter than the Adidas Avanti. That's their track spike, 25 millimeters of stack for a 5K on the track, 10K on the track. The Adidas Takumi Sen, right, like this is 6.7-ish as well, 2 ounces off of that. You take a look at the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite.
With the higher stack height.
With a higher stack height. Like, there just hasn't been a shoe like this before. So why can't they charge their price? You know, like there's literally nothing you can compare it to. So why can't they name it? And so I don't think they're worried about setting a precedent, because I don't think this is a shoe they're trying to market to normal people. I think, not that I'm going to buy the shoe myself, $500 is a lot of money, right? Like, that's the investment that you would have to feel, is it worth it for me? But I will say this too, to leave off of this topic, and this is an honest question, and you guys can feel free to answer it. We can use this as a subjective. How much is a PR worth to you? That is an honest question. because people are willing to shell out thousands of dollars to go travel and go run a race that will get them, help them get a PR, a flat, fast course with bodies around them. People are more than happy to go do that. That is way more than $500. And when you look at the other sports around us that are in the endurance world, they're spending so much more money than running. And so I'm not trying to take a stab at like general consumption by any means. But when you're looking at peak performance and what people are putting out there from a technology standpoint, every other sport does it. You know, there's this weird like dogma of like purity in the running world where it's like, oh, like we don't charge that much. We don't pay our athletes that much. A bigger concept for another thing too. But runners, you can be an Olympic level athlete and be making a fraction of what someone who's making on the bench, you know, in any other sport. And I think this shoe in a weird way is like not necessarily changing the conversation on that, but it's showing like, look, we're putting a lot of work into this. And yeah, so I'm going to buy it conceptually. I don't know if I would buy it fiscally, but like that would come down.
Did you already use your like, it depends cheat earlier?
No, I think
it's
this
still
is
a
legit.
buy. It's a legit buy. On the concept, right? Like
a couple things. I'm glad you brought up that perspective of like, I'm buying the marketing. Basically, you're buying the marketing technique of like, we have this brand new thing. Nobody can do it. We're going to show it to you. And I hope that's all it is. And I do hope that it doesn't become that every super shoe becomes this like $400 thing.
If McLaren goes and drops some crazy shoe, is everyone going to go get mad that it's worth $3 million or more for a car? No, only the car people are going to care, right? So it's going to be like, it's not meant for the general consumer.
I think the other part too is, you know, it's a super valid question to ask, what's a PR worth to you? I know my answer is going to be like, I wouldn't go run CIM to get a PR. Period. Right. I'm not going to fly out there. So I know what a PR costs me. I would go to CM because I want to run in California or something. Like I would go run Big Sur before I would run CIM because I want to like experience. It's like experiential for me. That's my travel. But some people's travel might be for their PR. Yeah. So I think that's a super valid question.
How many people go to Chicago? They go to Berlin. They go to these races that are set up to run fast.
But I think too. I think the other piece is a flat course. If I ran Chicago, I could almost guarantee I'd run faster than I would at Big Sur. You know?
Totally.
Like, I'm not going up 2,000 feet of elevation game in Chicago. The guarantee of a shoe on your foot to actually get your PR, it's so much further from a guarantee than going to a flatter course.
Think of it from this perspective now. So now, how much is a PR worth to you, right? So that's the first question. Now think back, or think forward, shall I say. Let's look 20, 30 plus years in the future. You're done. Mm-hmm. You're not running competitively anymore. It's all said and done. And you're looking back on things. And everyone always says, don't have regrets. Put it all out there. Put yourself in a situation that can make you successful. That's going to be the best that you can possibly be. And I'm not saying it's going to be the shoe, but if that shoe was a component of that, and let's say you just missed something by a second or two, and maybe you weren't running in something that was the best for you, and maybe that would have done it, you're going to be stuck waiting, you know, or you're going to be stuck thinking about that later on after just missing something. And
I know for me, I wouldn't worry about that, but I think it's a valid argument for some people to consider potentially. Yeah. I'm not
saying that I'm going to personally shell out $500 for this shoe, and that's an honest question you got to sit down and ask yourself because it's not a guarantee. But if it did work out, right? Like if it did work out and the stars aligned and you ran the race of your life, it's worth it.
I would also
didn't you sell the super shoes earlier as having a major impact?
Totally. Well, that was my cheat, right? I cheated and I said for a world record, no. For the masses, yes.
All right. We got to move on. This is good. This was good. And yeah, if we end up testing this shoe, we'll give our thoughts on it. It'll be interesting to run in, like what's going on a molecular level.
I still really want to run in this shoe. I still really want to run in it. And somehow I'm going to get my hands on it.
But it doesn't mean that we don't want the shoe if we're selling the concept of it. Like, I would love to run in that shoe. But I'm going to just one more quick little snippet. I almost deep down, and I'm secretly a little bit of an Adidas guy too. I promise there's no bias in my reviews. I'm very objective. But just traditionally growing up. But I almost hope this shoe does what they want it to do, because that only drives further innovation and makes everyone better, right? That's what the Vaporfly did.
And what if it doesn't? What if it's like the Sub 2,
The
right?
Vaporfly
Like,
might not have done it, right?
Well,
but the Vaporfly did.
it did,
and
though.
So, but for the first,
and
exactly.
they brought their receipts to the launch.
They did.
But
even before they
did you
released
see-
it, the receipts
how
were
many
there.
people were mad at Nike for the next 2 or 3 years, right? Like, it brought a lot of bad press too. And so, like, Adidas is going to take heat for it. But what if it does what they want it to do? And then fast forward 3 years, everyone's got something that's similar.
But they don't have
like-
any receipts yet.
Well,
In fact,
you gotta sit
they
back
actually
and
have a
watch.
receipt. The receipt showed it didn't work at the Great North one. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
No, the true
it
debut
was
was
second.
Berlin.
All right, let's see.
One
that's
person
next
got
weekend?
second in one of the hardest races to win
But
in
hold
the
on,
planet.
hold on.
Yeah,
For
they
me,
got
the-
second. It's a bad shoe.
Hold on. The receipt is not an athlete doing well in the
No.
in the shoe. That's not what the receipt is. The receipt is Nike had the Hoot Commerce study. They had a
Yeah.
study that showed it
They
worked
had
for
research.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, performance on race day is so different than measuring running economy. And so I don't think receipts are professional runners doing well. Receipts are the studies that our friend down in Texas does, right?
And there
Like,
wasn't.
does
it wasn't
Joburg.
just.
I
it
want
wasn't
that.
Just, yeah, it wasn't just Who's Gamer study. There were actually
But see, your guys'
multiple
value
studies.
is also in the data. Like, what if, let's say at Berlin, you have 10 Adidas
We're looking
guys
at all
pop
the
off for
factors:
sub
the
204?
data, the athlete. This.
I know,
Okay,
but if
fine.
you have,
So
if you have
somebody
10 guys
pops
run
off
under
a sub
204,
That's
yeah,
not.
let's say
I mean,
one of them
you guys,
pops off a sub 2, right? But that's
Okay,
one. But
then
I'm saying
maybe I
10.
might be more
What if
interested.
10 run under 204? That's going to turn
too
some
much of
heads,
a-
right?
I don't
show-
think that's
show
that
me the
big of a
receipt.
deal. I
Show
don't.
me the
You don't
receipt.
think that's that big
I
of a
think
deal?
10 if
I
you
think
get the
that's a
right-
huge deal.
I think if you get the
10
right
guys
race,
running sub
you can get
204 in the same
with-
shoe is huge.
Yeah, I think you could do that with Vaporflies right now if you had the right conditions, the right people. But show me. All right, so I'm still a sell, but show me. Let's see.
Yeah, if that comes out, David, I think it'd be interesting to see how we feel about it.
So 5 years ago, 6 years ago, same exact question, Vaporfly being $90 more than Takumi-sen. Is that a buy? Not knowing the data, not knowing the
Yeah.
research, not knowing anything. Why?
If I had put that on my feet,
He said not knowing the
Not
research.
knowing it. Not knowing it. The Hook Armor study is
But we-
not out to
we-
the public. All the data,
We
all
did,
the
though.
things, it's all
we
speculated.
did. It was out when it came when the shoe came out. It was those studies were published.
I
So
think
we
it's
did
too
know.
hypothetical.
Yeah.
Too hypothetical. But let's move forward. We got to keep moving on. Otherwise, we're not going to get to our shoes or to our other topics here. We're moving away from shoes for a second. We're too hot. We got to cool down a little bit. Buy or sell strength training for injury prevention.
Oh, bye.
Let's get a little happier here. Matt, you
Yeah.
buy it. David, do you,
Easy
you
buy.
sell this, right, David?
Easy buy.
I buy it.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say it's yes, that's probably one of the few things that we know, and there's very, very consistent and good evidence on decreasing injury risk. But also, we can even go into the theory of the fact that strength training may not make you faster. There's some evidence that in some people it can. But strength training increases the capacity for your tissues to handle stress, right? It improves your ability, your strength. The stronger you are, the more stress you can theoretically handle. It's not going to make you impervious to injury, because if you do dumb stuff, you're still going to get hurt. But I think it does increase that capacity. And maybe I'm biased because that's what I'm seeing in my research in geriatrics and masters runners, is that honestly, strength training has the biggest impact on your function as you age. I know we're going off shoes and off running a little bit here, but aerobic stuff is great. It's really important. But the biggest, if you're somebody that's really into longevity research, strength training is one of the best things you can do to maintain your function as you age. And there's no age that you stopped adapting to it. There's great research on 90 and 100-year-olds that will respond to strength training. So I'll buy.
I think one caveat, I buy this as well. I think a caveat to, you said there's a lot of robust evidence showing this. The evidence on strengthening to decrease injury is not done in runners. It's done in athletes.
That's fair.
So like most of the research is not specific to runners. However, a study did come out in 2023. I think it was in January.
Yes.
I wrote a shakeout about it.
Yeah.
And that one was finally a study that was prospective in nature. They had I think they had 400 runners or 200, 400 runners, and half of them got this injury prevention kind of like strengthening routine that they did twice a week. The other group did not get any, and all of them were healthy and didn't have injuries beforehand. And the people who and these were not people training necessarily for like new things. They were just kind of maintaining their recreational running habits. But an 85% lower risk of injury was found in the people who did this strengthening routine. But they had to be highly compliant, which for the study meant that over the 18 weeks, they could only miss one session a month, basically, which is hard to do for a lot of people. The people who missed 2 sessions a month, which means you had to do twice a week, hey, you laugh at it, but only 36% of the people could be compliant compliant with it. So it's like, it's not easy to do. But
what was the strength training?
It was, I have it written. You can check out the shakeout on our website. I don't have all of that
much.
It was simple. It was 20 minutes of strengthening, and they did have foam rolling in there. That's a whole other part of the conversation. But they did have a 30-minute routine, basically, that they did. But you have to be completely consistent, or highly, highly consistent, where you only miss one a month, meaning you do 8. If it's a 4-week month, you got to get pretty much all 8 in. And it's not a lot, but it's harder to do than we'd think, because these people were given a program, they were given it on their phones, they could follow it perfectly, and only 30% could actually do it. So it really more matters that you can be compliant with the program that you have and finding ways to work it in. I know that that's a huge problem for myself, probably why I get injured, because I don't build the muscle capacity for myself, so
you just need a couple of 100-pound kettlebells to pull around.
I have stuff. I just still don't do them.
I'm just gonna just put the 100-pound right next to your door, and you just like deadlift every time.
Good, but yeah, I'm a huge buy on this, and I'm just excited that now there's a study specific to runners that show what we kind of all thought it would be true, but I think it's cool to see. Yes, it held true for this population of people. I do think that if you do look up that study, it might not be the exact program that you need if your running volume is higher. The average runner in that study was running about like 16 to 20 miles a week. So it wasn't super high mileage. So the type of strength training that someone with higher mileage or more intensity or whatever might need might be different than what they found in the study. But either way, great study, great starting spot to have some simple things going on there.
So to do a prospective study, by the way, with like 400 people is insane. Like the level of effort and the attrition that happens with that is a nightmare, which is why I'll never ever do that.
Yeah, the attrition rate on that is
sorry, people, not ever doing that. Yeah, screw that.
I should just say too that the amount of injury risk for people who were not in that highly compliant category was the same as those who didn't do any strength training. So that's a little discouraging that even a little bit doesn't go in this study. A little bit didn't go further than nothing. That's a bummer.
Is it a little bit? I mean, I feel like 20 minutes twice a week is not that much to begin with. Just saying.
I think it's more the consistency more than anything.
Yeah.
Like if you ran once a week,
that's the hard part, though.
Are you going to get that much better at running?
Right.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Or in terms of the stimulus that you need to get, it's the same thing. We've talked about this with tendons, right? You need to consistently rehab a tendinopathy for 9 months to make an impact on it, right? Because you need that continual stimulus. That's what protects you. You can't be like when I feel like it. It's got to be. Yeah. But and twice a week. It's not like every other every day.
That'll add up.
It's twice a week.
Matt, you're hilarious. You're like, this isn't that hard, but out of 200 people, like.
Okay,
yeah, so it is hard.
We know.
It's easy.
Look at the literature on exercise compliance.
That client says, "Oh, I'm going to have this done today." Sorry, guys, I didn't have this done today. Right? Like it gets put off the next day.
Well, think about how many.
It happens to the regular population
at some point, I still get it done.
Like exactly.
But I might be late on that, but I'm still getting my strength training in. And those take a hell of a lot longer than 20 minutes, by the way.
Right? You get to a question of priority at a certain point. What if someone prioritizes something more than the strength training, and then the strength training doesn't get done at the same consistency that it could get done?
So my follow-up question to this, I get it. And there's very good evidence on that fact. We know that the research on compliance is people are not good at this, right? We know that. So my question is, all right, we've closed, like not closed, but it's a good chapter in this book on human beings and tissue tolerance, especially in runners. My question is, now we get the psychological stuff of what helps people improve their compliance. How do we make this easier to do, right? All you got to do is you got to do this twice a week. That's it. People are still having trouble with that. how do we improve that? That's my question, and I don't know the answer
me
to
too.
that.
Me too.
Oh, I'm a buy, by the way.
Yeah, I figured we're all biased on this
whatever.
one.
Yeah.
And it's still not spicy.
For
this
me,
is spicy.
Yeah, I mean, just to make it real short,
just
'cause
made
I know
it
we've been
spicy.
spending a long time on it. But I feel like the viewpoint that I kind of have on it is it increases your body's capacity to do work. And that can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
You're just more resilient. You can do more. It might not make you faster. Like there's obviously other components that go into it with power, agility, whatever you're doing. What is the program? But the sheer fact that you're doing something is better than nothing. So I'll just leave it on that.
But it has to be more than a certain amount of something to make an impact.
That
So,
is
just
true. It
FYI.
was something with some level of consistency.
Just be consistent.
All right, so here is, which is easier said than done. All right, but we're going to move on. Here's our next question. We're going back to shoes. And it's buy or sell shoes that are created for people who run at a certain pace. So buy or sell shoes that are created for certain pace groups.
So I'm going to sell it. Everyone runs different. I feel like if you're going to tune it to a certain pace, that doesn't make as much sense to me because everyone strikes different. Everyone lands with a different amount of force into the ground. They interact with, you could take 10 people, you could take 100 people off of the street and have them run in the same exact shoe at the same exact pace, and their loading forces, tibial acceleration, pronation speed, everything you could possibly think of metric-wise is going to be different for all 100 of them. I don't think you can make things to be quote unquote like faster, slower, kind of middle, but it's not really like if you're saying like this is for 650 and faster, this is for 5 minutes and faster, this is for, I don't know, 10 minutes and slower, this is for 8 minutes, give or take a minute, you know. I don't think that in itself, no matter how well you make the foam, geometry, whatever the philosophy is, I don't think it's going to be the same for everyone. And I don't think that just because you run in that pace, that shoe's going to feel good.
I'm actually torn on this one a little bit.
You can't cheat. You already cheated.
I know I can't cheat. I already used my cheat, so I'm not going to answer yet. But I'm going to give my thoughts, and then I'll conclude with my buy or sell at the end.
No, you gotta buy sell. You gotta buy sell first, and then.
Now, David, you waited to say buy on strength training till the very end. Let him do his
I said
thing.
buy from the beginning.
No, you didn't.
I just didn't get a chance to speak until the end.
That's it.
Here's the complicating factor for me. I think I really enjoyed the study that was done by Dustin and oh my gosh, our friend
Jeff Burns.
Is he your friend?
Jeff.
Apparently.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Sorry, Jeff.
Sorry,
That's
Jeff.
embarrassing. Oh, I feel terrible. But I think that the study by Dustin and Jeff is really interesting, where they looked at the impact of super shoes on runners at slower paces, who typically run at slower paces. Just because we did see that there are globally a difference in the amount of improvement that group of runners got versus running at a faster pace. I think that the other information that we've learned from Saucony is that running in the Kinvara Pro for people running slower is the same as the benefit that they would get, if they were running that pace in the Endorphin Pro 3. So I think that there is something to be said about how a shoe is sometimes more advantageous from a running economy perspective at different paces. However, like you said, David, I think that the specificity for the person is still so hard to figure out that it's hard to operationalize it. So I think that the concept is there, where a shoe for me at my pace might be better than a shoe for David at his pace. But to be able to figure that out, it wouldn't be because of specific components of that design that are going to be good for everyone at the 8 to 10 minute. I think that would be really hard to actually make reality, but I do think that there's something to be said. I also think what's not measured beyond pace are things like mechanics. Every study can't look at like how you're hitting the ground and your ground contact time, your duty cycle, like how much does that play into how you respond to a shoe. Not every, I don't know what they did all the way with that, Kinvara Pro study, but I doubt that they got all that stuff. So I think there are other factors that don't allow those studies to make me confident that yes, there would be something to say about kind of getting shoes like to a certain pace. But there's something there. So I'm gonna say the concept buy. I'm gonna buy the concept, but not operationally. I'm gonna buy the concept. Just like David bought the concept of the $500 shoe.
I'm waiting for a message.
What was the exact question again?
Do you buy or sell shoes by pace, like pace-tuned shoes?
Okay, so what's the answer to that question? It doesn't say the concept of pace.
Oh, darn. Okay, then
it doesn't say.
Sell it. I'm waiting for a message from Andrew Paulson, by the way, going, actually, we did get that. That'll happen like the day after.
Yeah, Andrew's going to be like, yeah.
Shout out to the Saucony team, by the way.
Actually, Corey would probably tell us that.
Yeah.
But Matt, what's your thoughts on this?
I hear both of your concepts on this. And Nathan, I hear your back and forth, and I'm also in agreement that I'm a sell based on the variability. I'm sure pace is a variable. I don't know if it's the most important variable yet. There's so many variables that go into running. And I say this as somebody who is studying biomechanics, and all the things that I'm looking at between moments, powers, range of motion, all these different things that go into this, how people land, how they're loading, what movement strategy they're using, how they choose to move. I'm not totally sold on this from like, hey, let's sell shoes based on this outside of maybe like a really broad concept. If you're talking to me about like, hey, this is a good shoe for 6 to 630 pace, absolutely not. I'm not going to say dumb because that's mean, because I know people are doing that, but I don't think that's valid. I don't think it's good, and I don't think it's going to make the impact that maybe they're hoping. However, if you start talking about like a training shoe versus a super shoe, we're talking about the aggressiveness, then that I think is more appropriate. And that it goes. There's
always been that.
Again, I'm still sell,
racing flats,
but
and
that
trainers.
goes back to, yeah, I think it's the same thing that Simon Bartold and I talked about, where it's like the skill set of the individual is definitely something that's going to contribute to shoe choice. If you can't handle the forces and the instability associated with the Vaporfly, you shouldn't be running in it, regardless of your speed. Honestly, right? Even if you're a fast, newer runner, if you can't handle that, that's probably not the best thing, because you're going to get hurt. And there's other factors. You might do better. Like, I remember we were talking about somebody who ran like a super fast time in the Hoka Arahi or the Hoka Bondi, and they ran like a 220. Was that David? Was that you that was talking about that?
I don't know. I heard Hoka Arahi. I got excited.
Arahi. It was
Actually, I know someone. I know someone personally that has run some savage efforts in the Bondi. I joke with him that it's Bondi World Records every time he runs.
I know that's an N of 1, but at the same time, I'm going. This is already being done. It's a training shoe or lightweight trainer versus a super racing shoe, and not everybody needs a super racing shoe. And I'm going to stand by that. I think we already have what we need. It's cool. I'm curious to see more of the data behind some of these, like the Kinvara Pro and stuff like that. And I honestly put the Kinvara Pro with the Mach X, the Boston, stuff like that. But I'm not sold on it, and I'm a sell because I think the concept's already there in training shoes and the skill set of the runner. And there's too many other variables. But
cool.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Bring it.
All right. I have one final.
It is getting spicy.
I don't care.
This is way more energy than I ever could have
I'm a new parent and I'm a PhD candidate. I'm wrong all the time. Prove me wrong.
All right.
I'm sitting there like, I'm wrong again. Awesome. This is great. Screwed this up. Cool.
I have one final question for us. We did not get to all the things on our list. Some of these conversations went way longer than I anticipated, which is great. Yeah. So here's our final question for the night. This is a question that they did not know was coming. So sorry, y'all. You didn't know it was coming.
This shoe was this, I'm going to be
no, it's not.
If this shoe was a sports team, I'm screwed.
It's a buy or sell. Buy or sell. Buy or sell. LeBron James is given 4 months to train for a marathon. Buy or sell that LeBron James can qualify for Boston with 4 months of training.
How old is James now?
You could take LeBron James now or in his prime.
No, you got to choose. It's now.
No.
I'm okay.
Let's say LeBron James now. Let me see. How old is he? He's got to be like late 30s, right? LeBron James, he is 38 years old. What is the Boston standard for 38? Boston standard.
I think it's
for
305.
38 years old.
Sell.
Let's
think it's 305.
see here. Qualify for Boston. It's 305?
No.
I'm pretty darn
Sell.
sure.
That's like high 650s, right?
I
right
think it's
around
closer to 7, I think.
Right around 7 minutes. Yeah,
Okay,
high
fine.
650s.
7 flat.
Right around 7. That would be about the same.
Yeah. Close
So
enough.
Matt, you sell. Why do you sell that though? LeBron James.
Because it's LeBron James, right? You're talking about somebody that's
305. Wait. You said 4. You said 4 months.
4 months.
Depending on when his birthday is, it goes up 5 minutes. If he
we're not
turns
gonna-
40 before
let's-
this raise. Oh, wait, no, he's 38.
Let's
He's
just-
38.
He's
Never mind.
38.
He'll be fine.
I'm a
So he's
sell-
305. He's locked in at 305. Okay.
That's like saying, "Hey, Kenenisa Bekele, if we give you 3 months, are you going to be able to ball with LeBron James?" Like, no, you're not. You're gonna
Wait,
get
hold
wrecked.
up. That doesn't stand at all.
So I'm saying that
Ken Newsom Michaela to be an
LeBron-
NBA player in 3 months? That
Yeah,
doesn't work that way.
That's not even the same. Running.
I don't care.
We talk
I'm
about
just using an extreme analogy.
to
Let me
be like
finish.
one
Hold
of the
on, hold
best
on.
players. Like that'd be like saying LeBron
Okay.
James has 3 months to run 2:02 in the marathon. Is basically what you
I
just said.
don't care. I don't even think
No.
Kenenisa would make it to the minor leagues. I
Probably wouldn't,
like.
but that's not like. That's
I don't think so.
besides the
So
point.
I think as an athlete, like when you get to that elite level, you are very good at a small section of things, right? Basketball is going to be very different than running a marathon. And I think you got to put in like injury risk. So if you're assuming he won't get hurt during this time of something so new for him that he's got to go run 7
Let's
flat
say it
for a
goes
marathon.
well. Training's good. He makes it to the line. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're not-
fine.
we're not
fine.
anticipating injury
let's say that. What percentage of people can run a 305 and faster?
So, but it's not percentage of people. It's LeBron James. We're talking about one of the best athletes of all time.
But he's
And-
the best athlete at a very specific thing, and it's not endurance running. That is a different skill set.
I've seen
I
that
don't
guy
think
ball
these transfer.
entire games, grinding the entire time. Like that is endurance.
It's not running in a relatively straight line. It's turning, twisting, cutting, pivoting. That is a very different skill set.
Have you
than
played
run. It's like,
basketball
well,
for longer than like 20 minutes in a game before?
Yes. Yeah, it's
Okay, it's
exhausting, but it's a
exhausting.
different. It is
So here-
different.
here we go.
Hold on, wait. So I want to go into a motor learning and motor control component, right? So this is where we
no.
talk about, does a skill transfer? Okay. And I think if you ask like, hey, have him go play soccer, we might have a little different conversation, right? Because again, different skill set, but some of the same energy systems are definitely being utilized. So I would argue that has a better transfer than asking somebody to do something so extreme as a marathon. So I'm going to say sell. And I'll stop and let this get spicy, even though you guys love LeBron James. And I think
I don't
biased.
love LeBron James. I don't.
David, do you
dislike
want to go
him, but-
next? David,
Yeah,
what do you
I'll
think?
go next. I'm going to say buy. And here's why I buy it. So when I think of the Boston qualifying standard and you think of the people that are working really hard, they have structured training programs and they're like, this is my goal. I want to make Boston, right? Like that's usually relatively the better end of the general public. If you have someone who truly has run competitive, qualifying for Boston usually isn't very hard. So with that said, you're taking one of the greatest athletes this planet has had, someone who's got that dog in him and knows how to compete and work and really, really put himself through the hurt locker for the sake of doing something to just have a trophy at the end of it. Like, I think if he drops basketball, everything, and just makes that his focus, he's going to run 305. I have pretty good confidence in LeBron James running 305. And it's not, I don't think he'll run that much under it. I'm not saying he's going to go blast a 230 something, 240 something, but 305, I think he can hit that. But it's, again, this is him dropping everything, training for it. Everything goes well with the buildup. Like, I don't think it's something that it's like if you just asked him today, like, hey, Bron, you want to go run a 305? He'd be like, F that. Like, why would I do that? But if he like truly made that his mission, I think he'd get it done.
So
because I'm taking. One more little
you can
tidbit of
finish.
that. To go off of the the faster end of the general public, right? Like trying to make it. Now you're going to take the slower end of the truly elite athletes, and like I think it's in there, and I think he could if he really put it down. I don't think he's going to go around 220. I'm going to say that. Like that would be the equivalent of saying minor leagues or something like that. You were saying earlier, like asking Kenenisa Bekele to go play G League or something. He's not going to do it. But I think asking him to go
I
around
hope
305 is a
Bekele
pretty
listens to this
reasonable
podcast
ask.
and hears me say that.
So, but I am also a sell on LeBron James being able to Boston qualify. I'm a sell on it. So, I mean, I definitely disagree with Matt's analogy of the basketball thing. Like, having basketball is we talk about running being a skill, we do, but not to the extent that something like basketball is. Like, that is a very like fine skill that you have to like get over time. LeBron James runs all the time. So, like, to give LeBron James some potential credit here, like, he's not just playing a game. Like, that's not the only time he's active. He practices for hours and hours and hours strung together. However, I agree with Matt that, like, the type of systems that he's going into is he's really good at dipping into anaerobic and getting out of it, and recovering and dip into anaerobic and get out. He doesn't have this, like, huge aerobic motor in the same way that it's used for running. I give LeBron, like, tops, like, a 330. I think that's where he could tap out in like his first go if he had 4 months. Give him 2 years, and yeah, I think he could get there because he could just like totally change his like approach. But I think for a guy to be like genetically, for a guy to be as good at basketball as he is, you need so many type 2 fibers. I think he is like, he's not built to run a marathon. He's built to be amazing at basketball. And I just don't think he has it in his tank to like flip that in that short of time to like recruit as much as you could to like get that aerobic base. I just don't think he has it. And I hope he listens to this and proves us wrong. And then he can come on here and tell us that he did it or something.
You know, the feedback I just got from Nathan is exactly what my students tell me is that how I teach is good. The analogies just suck. So the science is correct, but the analogies are terrible. So I got to work on that.
Good. Well,
actually,
let us know
here's
what you
an
think.
interesting, just something. Do you guys know who Nick Bear
Stats and
is?
intel.
Is it that Kenenisa did play in the G Leagues? Is that it? Right.
I'd be rolling
I do
over
not.
just ecstatic if I saw Kenenisa Bekele playing in the G League.
Just getting wrecked. I keep going, but I just can't keep the ball. It's just terrible.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry, that's...
Moving forward, Nick
What
Bear.
were you saying, David? We got to wrap this thing up.
Yeah, 2020, he ran 324. 2022, he ran 248. If you guys know who he is, that guy is huge. Muscular, nothing but type 2. Like, so he took 2 years to get down to 240s. Anywho.
Yeah.
He's not LeBron
Yeah, but
James.
that was the
LeBron
question. It was
James is
4
still
months.
another level athlete.
I know. Thank you for helping
Specific
prove my
athlete.
point, though. Give him a short period. I don't think he could do it. Give him a couple years. I think he's got it. Mainly, honestly,
That's
marathoning's
fair.
so mental. Like, whew, LeBron's got the mental toughness way more than me, obviously. So anyway, although he's kind of a whiner on the court, if we're honest. But I'm going to wrap us up. We're going to be done talking about this. Thank you all for joining for this buy or sell episode. We had a lot of fun and hope that there was some, even though in the midst of the fun, I hope there was some things that you could glean or think about or whatever. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on any of these buy or sells. We'd also love to hear what else you want to hear us buy or sell and talk about. So if you want to follow along with us, you can always go onto our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, all of that stuff. We are on there and active. I think that we only have like 80 some reviews of this podcast, and we get like 5,000 to 10,000 listeners for each episode. So if like 3% of you could just go on and leave a review, that would really help us in terms of continuing our growth. Just go on to whatever platform that you listen on, either subscribing to YouTube or if you're on like Apple Podcast, leaving a written review helps a lot too. So if we could get a small percentage of you all to take 10 to 30 seconds talking of compliance, how do we motivate you to do this? I don't know, but it would be awesome if you could do it. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.